So, good morning, everybody. We start in spite of the fact that we are still missing some of our speakers. My name is Rebecca Harms. I'm the co-president of the Greens in the European Parliament. And I'm very happy that I can open this hearing on Paks together with my colleague Benedek Javor from Hungary. I have to admit that I appreciate very much, as the leader of the Green Group in the European Parliament, that this group is strengthened tremendously in our eastern angle since the last European elections, and our two members from Hungary really make on several issues a difference. We have discussed on Paks in our group before, because so this accident, what happened years ago, and brought Europe close to a Chernobyl-like situation, was observed from the Greens in the European Union, and we tried to draw consequences also concerning Hungary, but everything now is much easier, having direct connections into politics of Hungary, thanks to Bence and thanks also to Tamás. So the hearing today fits perfectly, I would say, in the European discussion. We have a new discussion on energy union, European energy union. We are only few weeks, a few days, you can say, behind the 4th anniversary of Fukushima, and we are only a few weeks before the 24th anniversary of the Chernobyl accident. And I name both accidents because I think Greens, as some others, always saw that nuclear energy is a high-risk technology, and if it comes to accidents, it's very, very difficult to regain control. So in Chernobyl, you have until today not finished the cleanup. So a quarter of a century past the accident, and no finished cleanup. Far away, it will take another generation at least. And in Fukushima, even worse, they have nothing under control, admitted openly by those who are working as experts on site, but covered by International Energy Atomic Agency and also covered by the Japanese government, because they are so interested to restart nuclear business in Japan. By the way, it's nearly dead. So in between this accident in Fukushima and today, 2 nuclear reactors restarted, but the rest of the nuclear fleet is not working in Japan until today. So risk is one of the green arguments against nuclear energy, but in this risk matters a lot the question how to deal with the most dangerous waste which is produced in nuclear reactors, sometimes also accidentally, as it happened in the case of this horrible accident in Paks some years ago. And I find it, until today, not only a problem how long it took to really restart the cleanup in Paks, I find it also alerting that the shipment of this waste from the accident took place last year to Russia via Ukraine, in a situation which is far away from being under security aspects under control. Consequences from this decision to ship the waste to Russia, and to do it in such a situation of war in Ukraine, to do it under these conditions, so very, very questionable, and I expect still some good answers by the European Commission. The recent decisions on Paks, we will discuss it today. We have invited some of very experienced consultants, advisors, experts on nuclear issues, especially also on nuclear economy. So it's not hidden that the Greens would argue anyway against the new build of a nuclear reactor in Hungary. But the circumstances of this decision in Hungary are really, from my point of view, so awful that we really have to speak up against this project. So the idea of Viktor Orban to create more energy independency and more towards Russia and was still vital some years ago. Now he's doing just the opposite. Yeah? He offers a deeper dependency from Russia as answer to a complete new security situation with Russia. For me, this Ukrainian issue cannot at all be ignored in all decisions which we have to do on energy and energy security for the future. I think Russia, President Putin, not the Russians, but President Putin, gives a lot of new arguments in favor of a sustainable energy strategy which is not focused on fossil and nuclear stuff, especially not if those resources come as resources and via technology from Russia. How to do it better, how to overcome high-risk technology, how to restart discussions in Hungary on better energy economy, on sustainable development in the field of energy. This we will discuss today, but let's be clear. Economically, it's also not the best solution what you get as an offer by Russia. Whether it is feasible at all, whether the contract, if you look on the economic situation in Russia right now, whether it's feasible what they agreed in the contract is a very, very interesting issue. Right now, even in UK, the question whether French and Chinese nuclear companies can fulfill this famous contract with UK for Hinkley Point C is an open question. And this is one of the contracts which shows how expensive nuclear power is today, that the economic case is very doubtful. UK, together with Chinese and French contractors, decided to agree on a price for nuclear-made electricity, which is already today twice or threefold higher than what we pay in Germany for onshore wind energy. And this price shall be guaranteed for over 35 years. So let's be serious also about the non-flying economic case of nuclear. I pass the floor to Benze. I have to excuse myself. I have to leave in some minutes, but I will come back and follow the hearing and meet our experts for lunch to also participate in developing of a strategy against Paks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, for this welcoming speech and to be co-host of this event in the European Parliament. And it's an honor to me to be the other co-host of this event, which was initiated and organized by Energia Klub. And I would like to say thank you for Energia Klub to be active in the issue and to put the pressure on MEPs to organize such a meeting, even though those MEPs were quite open to this pressure, to be honest. And I would like to say thank you for all of our distinguished speakers who accepted our invitation to contribute to today's discussion, which is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting as this hearing is extremely timely. Recently, in the last 10 days, a lot of things happened concerning the two new Paks blocks. First of all, last week, Financial Times published an article which made clear that the Euratom Supply Agency didn't accept the contract between Hungary and Russia concerning the fuel supply of the planned two new blocks at the Paks NPP site. This is a major problem, a major obstacle in the way of creating this NPP, keeping in mind that, of course, there is time to solve this problem and there might be some technical solutions how to find some new forms of contract to meet with the requirements of the European law and the European energy security strategy, which is basically the frame of energy policy in future Europe. But we have to also have an eye on the fact that the Hungarian government didn't make proper conversation with the European Commission and the supply agency beforehand contracting with the Russians, and now we are in a situation when it's not enough to find a solution with the Euratom Supply Agency, but also it should be accepted by the Russian partner, which is not for sure, seemingly, as supplying fuel is one of the most important parts of a nuclear investment. It makes a big share of the business, so it's still questionable if the Russians are interested in the project once they are not able to monopolize the fuel supply. And also, the Hungarian parliament accepted a new law which made basically every information concerning this nuclear investment state secret for 30 years. And the president of Hungary signed this new law just at the 4 years anniversary of the Fukushima accident. This was a clear sign how the Hungarian government and the Hungarian political elite regards to nuclear safety and nuclear security. So the situation is quite moving and quite exciting, and in this situation I think it's very timely to have a hearing and to share some ideas, some views and some facts about this investment. During this hearing we would like to highlight not only that obvious environmental risks, which was also mentioned by Rebecca, but beyond that, to prove that there are serious political and even larger economic risks that cannot be properly estimated, as there is no publicly available information on the investment in economic sense, in financial sense, and in we haven't seen the contracts themselves. In Europe and in European energy policy, we talk a lot about the Russian partner. Is it a reliable supplier of energy or not? We talk a lot about geopolitical risks, but mainly this conversation is limited to the gas supply. And we would like to stress that besides of the gas supply, not only the oil supply coming from Russia is an important issue, but also the nuclear investments which we have in the European Union and which are partly financed by Russia in the case of Hungary and based on Russian technology, Russian fuel supply and Russian waste management sites and technology. This is also a form of dependency which we have to face with. Rebecca mentioned that it's questionable if the project is feasible or not. Is Russia able to finance this project or not? But we have to keep in mind also that not long ago, at the beginning of February, there was one EU member state which that is the right time to receive Vladimir Putin inside the borders of the EU. The Hungarian Prime Minister met with Vladimir Putin in Budapest, and Putin was quite committed to carry out and to realize this investment, which also reinforced by governmental sources. They are completely committed to go ahead and have this project. Without proper estimation of the costs, without proper estimation the price of electricity produced in this nuclear power plant, without proper estimation what will be the electricity prices on the European market by the time the two new blocks will be active, without proper feasibility studies if from an economic point of view this is reliable or not. And the financial risk is so high without those estimations that we cannot keep silent in this situation, especially as the risk will not burden on the shoulders of Fidesz politicians or the government, but this will be on the shoulders of the Hungarian taxpayers. So we need public discussion on those issues as well. And just to mention two data, and I won't have any other numbers in my introductory speech, that according to my estimations, the interest rate is so high with this Russian loan that the Hungarian government have to pay back 1 to 1.3 billion euros a year as capital cost to Russia. Compared to that, the complete income of the existing Paks nuclear power plant is around 0.7 billion euros. So the total income of the Paks nuclear power plant, the company, is hardly beyond the half of the estimated capital cost of the investment, which makes the whole idea quite unstable. And also we have concerns about the project, if it fits into the European law or not. The supply agency already sent its written opinion to the Hungarian government, which clearly states that the original contract with Russia is against European strategies, policies, and law. But there are three additional investigations inside the European Commission. One is about the illegal or non-notified state aid. This is based on a complaint introduced by Energia Club and Greenpeace, as the capital cost of the investment, according to governmental communication, won't be covered by MVM, the Hungarian electricity company, or the Paks company itself, but this is a state loan, and as the capital costs are not included in the electricity price, this raises the issue of non-notified state aid. There is an investigation inside DG Competition concerning this issue. Also, there is an investigation because of the lack of tendering. The Hungarian government for years was speaking about a public international tender, a public procurement for the investment, and suddenly, from one day to other, nobody knows why and how, but they decided not to have the public procurement procedure, not to have this international tender, but just to give the project to Russia, to Rosatom, and we believe that this is also against European law. I sent a complaint to the Commission concerning this issue, and DG Internal Market, DG GROW, is investigating also in that case. And also we believe that the lack of transparency and the law accepted last week in the Hungarian Parliament, which makes every information as a state secret for 30 years, is violating European law concerning the publicity of information and public participation. And also we sent a complaint concerning the access to public information. And this leads us to the last point, that the project is not questionable from an environmental point of view, an energetic point of view, or a financial economic point of view, but also is questionable because the complete lack of the public involvement in decision making. This decision was made with the exclusion of the public. We initiated a referendum on the investment. This was rejected by the Hungarian authorities to have a referendum on the issue. There is a lot of misinformation on all levels. The government tries to keep secret each and every pieces of information, and even they try to deny sometimes those information which come to the public. So the project also questionable from a democratic point of view, from public participation point of view. I believe that even though there are some experts, people, politicians, a part of the Hungarian public who might support the idea of building 2 new nuclear blocks in Hungary, we have to reject the way it was decided and it is carried out in Hungary. Any important decision like that cannot be made in a way like that. And just to finish my introduction, I would like to inform you that, as you might experience, the language of the conference is in English, so we don't have any translation, but it is live streamed and recorded, so each and every word will keep for the future. Keep in mind that extremely those who have anything to lose with because of that. And we will have 4 presentations from distinguished experts, and Ada Amon, the president of Energia Club, Professor Stephen Thomas, and then Todor Galev and István János Tóth. I will introduce them when we come to the presentation, and at the end of or after the contribution from the experts, we will open the floor to Mr. Massimo Gariba from the European Commission, DG Energy, to react on those information presentation which we get in the forthcoming minutes and hours. And then we will have opportunity for questions and answers, so prepare yourself to make your questions for the experts, for Mr. Gariba from the Commission, or even for myself. And Rebecca Harms is going to join us later on. Now she has some other things to do. So I would like to ask Ada Amon to give her presentation to us. Ada Amon is the president of Energia Club, a Hungarian policy institute, with the objective of bringing through various projects, studies and publications a different type of mindset in dealing with energy issues. Among others, she has formerly worked as an energy advisor to the Greens in the European Parliament, so I would give the floor to Ada Amon. Thank you.
Thank you. I also feel very honored to be here, and as Rebecca and Benedek already said, we have been banging on an open door to come in and create and organize this meeting and hearing. I will give you a visualized summary of what has been already partly said in my presentation, which will kind of guide you through the history of this decision and the planned nuclear power plant in Hungary. I don't know how to do it, but I have a presentation which is pretty kind of moving. So basically, what I'd like to highlight here is what the problem with Paks 2, and right away I come to the conclusion, which is the problem is Paks 2 itself, and I would like to show you how it is. But first of all, let me introduce my organization a little bit. You might not heard about it yet. It is a 25-year-old organization, and we developed ourselves into a think and do organization. It thinks as a climate policy institute and does as the applied communication part. Basically, we do research and studies like in the framework of the project, what you are hearing here. We have done a lot of studies already about Paks since the government haven't released any which would convince us about the importance of that investment. But on the same, on the other side of the coin, we do things. We would like to make sure that people understand what we are talking about, and therefore we have a lot of communication projects and communication programs to make sure that consumers understand what we are talking about. Okay, so now, of course, we are working on energy policy, conventional energies, and also we think a lot about climate protection and also do adaptation work as well. So just to place Paks on the map, we have a 2,000 megawatt nuclear power plant at the moment, 500 megawatt reactors each, and now the planned extra capacity would be 2,400 megawatt, which would be more than double the size of the capacity of nuclear electricity production in Hungary. What we know about Paks is pretty limited, but I share with you. 12.5 billion would be the total sum as an expectation from the government, which is, just to give you a rough idea, is 20% of the Hungarian budget. And out of this 12.5 billion, 10 billion would come from Russia as a loan, and the rest would be put into by the Hungarian government from the Hungarian state budget. And then the loan should be paid back from 2026, the latest, or by the time when the nuclear power plant will be built or put on grid. What else we know? As I said, 1,200 megawatt power reactors, and this questionable 20-year of fuel supply, which would come from Russia. But as we heard from Benedek already, the Euratom Supply Agency has questioned that, and the Commission re-strengthened that decision. So we can move on to how this whole would affect the Hungarian electricity production. As you can see yearly, there will be a significant increase in nuclear production in Hungary, and in 2 years' time, the electricity production from one site would double, or more than double. And if we put another curve on this diagram, you'll see the total consumption of the Hungarian electricity demand, how it would increase over the time. And you'll see that there will be really small room for a long period of time for other sources of energy in terms of electricity production in Hungary. Well, if we look at a much smaller period of time, a daily curve, then you'll see the demand curve like that, the past and the future demand curve. Please stay on that. Which gives us the idea that in early morning hours, there will be no other electricity source used in the Hungarian market, or we will be forced to export big time the electricity from the middle of 2020. Thank you. Okay, just a little bit of the history. In 2009, the Hungarian government made a decision, a very wide kind of consent, that we should start to investigate whether we would need another nuclear power plant in Hungary. And accordingly, a new project started under the framework of the Hungarian Electricity Works, which was aiming to prepare for the tender, which was suddenly dropped in 2014 when Mr. Orbán met Putin in Moscow, and they made a deal of signing an agreement, a bilateral agreement for building a new nuclear power plant in Hungary. And that started a new area of this. In February, the Parliament, within 2 weeks' time after this visit, passed a new law, which was basically the ratification of the bilateral agreement between Hungary and Russia. And in the summer, the financial setting was also passed by the Parliament. End of the year, new implementation agreements were signed between Russia and Hungary, including the questionable fuel supply management contract. And in the beginning of March, as already was mentioned, the Euratom Supply Agency questioned that, and the next day, the Hungarian government passed a law which is going to make all the relevant documentation, as far as we know or as far as we are concerned, made it 30 years top secret, or classifies all the documents which would be interesting for us, probably. Okay, what is the problem with the decision? So far as you could hear, there is a problem with the impact assessment or any preliminary studies. We haven't seen them, or they don't exist. There is a problem with the transparency issue, as you could hear so far. There is a problem of public consultation, but even experts were not negotiated on even the type of reactor what we are going to buy from the Russians. There are no alternative scenarios, or not relevant alternative scenarios to the 2 nuclear reactors. And finally, this centralized decision-making process will result in a very centralized energy system, which is totally in opposite to the European energy policy. From an EU aspect, the whole, and from a market aspect, tendering, the lack of tendering is a clear sign of the Hungarian government that they don't want to acknowledge market efficiency. The Hungarian government doesn't pay attention to the development of renewables, and this investment would be a great obstacle to renewable development in Hungary. And there is a high risk of corruption connected to this, as István will guide you through that problem later this morning. And as it was also mentioned, illegal state aid is, we are very suspicious that it is the case in terms of that project. So there are many problems which, and there are no answers to these questions and to these raised problems so far. Therefore, we have filed 2 complaints so far. One to the Hague Aarhus Convention Compliance Committee, and the other one to DG Competition. And we are very much looking forward to the result of those. Impacts on the Hungarian circumstances. Well, first of all, it is a very high dependency on Russia, which will continue to be increased by this new loan, financially, technically, fuel-wise. It will result in a centralized energy system. It will, you know, block a healthy development of a new way of energy planning. And through corruption, it can poison the whole economy and the political system, which finally can go into illegal party financing if we, you know, I can't even imagine that. Economic problems, yeah, I think this investment can have a really high impact on the economy and the competitiveness of the whole Hungarian economy. And if we can come to a diagram what was included actually in one of our studies, which was dealing with the budgetary impact of this project, then you can see that this loan itself can increase the debt of Hungary as a state by more than 5%, close to 8% in some years. So basically it diverts the debt curve of Hungary, which was agreed under the Maastricht criteria. Okay, finally, if we conclude, to the EU, it is a democratic, it is also a dependency problem and an energy security problem, as one unit of the European member states are kind of ignorant to all the EU rules connected to nuclear energy, renewables, and the sustainability directives connected to that. Energy security is in question, and it was all mentioned. There is a political risk if this is contagious, what Orbán is doing with energy and other stuff in Hungary. There's a corruption risk, which can also have a spillover effect, and the distortion of market is a great problem. And now I would like to come to my final statement, that I believe that this nuclear power plant will never be built. What we need to be very cautious about how much money will be spent still the time when it's not going to be built, because it doesn't serve neither the European nor the Hungarian interest. thank you very much, and we are looking forward to your questions, and hopefully you will have a chance to check out our website, which was designed to contain all the relevant information about this Paks project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ada. And now we go ahead, and I would like to ask Professor Stephen Thomas to give his presentation. Stephen Thomas is an energy policy expert in the Public Services International Research Unit at the Greenwich Business School since 2001. His field of study includes policy on nuclear power, the liberalization of energy markets, and the corporate policies of European energy companies. And Professor Thomas will give us a comparison of the Paks and the Hinkley investment in the UK, which is, I think, an extremely interesting topic. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I mean, the question you're probably asking is, why should you care about Hinkley Point? And I think, of course, any comparison between what you're having to pay and what others are paying for nuclear power is interesting, but the more specific interest is because the 12 member states that meet regularly to talk about nuclear power, which includes Hungary, said a couple of years ago that they wanted the option of using the British model of contracts for differences and all the other elements of the British deal. So, and that deal was approved by the Commission, so it does appear to be an option for other member states who have nuclear ambitions. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk briefly about the outline of the project, just compare the different sizes and so forth, and dates and so on, what the commercial arrangements are, what the risks and uncertainties of the two projects are, and what the common factors are. Next slide, please. Well, the project basics are that the Paks project is for two Russian reactors of the current design, which is designated AES 2006, 1,200 megawatts to be supplied by Rosatom. For Hinkley, it's two European pressurized water reactors, 1,600 megawatts supplied by Areva. The published construction start date for Paks is 2018, expected online 2025-26, which is quite a long construction period, which either, well, you need to think about why that is. For Hinkley Point, the Electricité de France hasn't said when it expects to start building. It has said that the first unit would come online in 2023, the second 2 years later, which implies starting to build in 2018, so still some distance away. The reported cost for Paks is 12.5 billion euros, which works out at about 5,200 euros per kilowatt. What I haven't been able to find out is whether that's an overnight cost. In other words, does it include interest during construction or not? The overnight cost does not include interest during construction. And you can see that's quite important if you look at the figures for Hinkley. The overnight cost is £16 billion, which is about 7,000 euros per kilowatt. But with finance, that goes up to £24.5 billion. So finance does add a lot on. It's good reasons for quoting the overnight costs, but it does imply that the plants are much cheaper than they actually are. It's also worth noting that the Hungarian cost looks quite low compared to the British cost, and whether that's true or not, I don't know. The common features is that in both cases there was no competitive tender. As Ada said, Hungary abandoned their competitive tender in January 2014 and awarded a contract to Rosatom. In the UK, there are three companies wanting to build nuclear power plants, but the other two are 3 or 4 years away from being able to sign any sort of contract. So for Hinkley, there was a bilateral negotiations between the government and Électricité de France. Paks will be owned by a state-owned company, MVM Paks 2, which is a bit misleadingly named because it no longer has any connection to MVM as far as I understand. It now reports directly to government. For Hinkley, it will be owned by a special vehicle which does not exist yet. The constituents are Électricité de France, which might take up to 50% of the shares, 2 Chinese companies which might take up to 40%, Areva, which said it might take up to 10%, but which hasn't got a hope of being able to do that, and other interests up to 15%. In the last month, it's become clear that the government is looking at taking a so-called golden share in the company. And the golden share is a little misleading because it's not a share that can be bought and sold. It has no value. It's simply something that gives the government the right to veto any significant changes to the company. So, for example, somebody wanted to sell their shares and bring in another company, then the government could veto that. The European Commission hates golden shares and tries to block them wherever it can. So this could be another hurdle for Hinkley. I haven't been able to see any account of what the power purchase arrangements are, how much it's going to be, what the position in the market, will it have priority over all other sources, and if, as Ada says, on low demand times there is nothing but Paks 2 on the system, that will push out any renewables or anything else that's on the system. For Britain, we have agreed to buy the power for €130 per megawatt hour, and that's a deal with a government agency which also has yet to be created. That price is indexed to inflation and will be reviewed at 15 and 25 years. For Paks, the contract is reported to be a turnkey contract, and the term turnkey tends to be used very loosely. The real definition of turnkey is entirely fixed price, and that was the deal that was signed for Olkiluoto, and that's why Areva and the Finnish utility are in court, because they are now, Areva is refusing to honour that contract. Very often turnkey is meant rather more loosely to mean just that they are supplying it all, and I have a feeling that the Paks contract is not genuinely fixed price. It's probably just to be supplied entirely by Rosatom. EDF claims to be taking all the construction risk, but that seems to be a meaningless claim given that they won't own the company. They will own less than half the shares, and if the company gets into trouble, are they really going to just keep piling money into it until they sort out the problem? So I think that's meaningless. In terms of, where are we? In terms of the commercial arrangements, 80% of the cost for Paks is going to be provided by an interstate loan. For Hinkley, we've gone down a slightly different route, that the loans will be guaranteed by UK taxpayers. So, if, in other words, the project goes bankrupt, UK taxpayers will repay the banks their loan money. So the UK taxpayers are on the hook for that. And that's expected to cover all the borrowing, which will be about £17 billion, about 80% of the cost. That deal has not been finalised yet, and of course we haven't even started to negotiate the loans. In terms of the interest, the reported rates of interest for Paks are 3.95 to 4.95, starting in 2014, with repayments starting in 2026, whether or not the plant is completed, and that is clearly a significant risk to Hungary if they are still in the middle of building it. For Hinkley Point, the expected rate of return is 9.75 to 10.25% nominal, in other words, including inflation, so maybe 7 or 8% real, which is a rather high rate of return. Is the contract signed for Paks? The reports say it is a final deal, but of course it hasn't gone through the European Commission, so there is clearly some uncertainty. For the UK, the terms are still provisional. There is nothing to say either party can walk away from the deal tomorrow with no penalties. There is nothing to say that the terms that were announced in 2013 will be the final terms, and I would be fairly confident that the terms of any final deal will change. As to the risks and uncertainties, well, there is a big technology risk. There are 4 AES 2006 under construction in Russia. All are late by about 3 years. The official reason is that they don't have the money to build them anymore. Whether there are technological problems as well, I don't know. For the UK, we probably have a much bigger technological risk because all the EPRs around the world are very late. Olkiluoto 9 years, Flamanville 5 years. Even in China, the plants are 2 years late. So there's a big technological risk. There is also the risk that the European Commission won't like the deal. There is a challenge to the European Competition Commission's verdict that the Hinkley Point C deal was okay. That's a whole process that Paks will have to go through on various different grounds. Another serious risk is who pays if costs overrun. Is the contract genuinely fixed price? And if we look at experience in Belarus, which is building 2 of these plants, because of the fall in the value of the ruble against the dollar, and the deal with Belarus is denominated in dollar, Belarus is going to have to pay 70% more for its 2 Russian reactors. So clearly that's a big risk. And I would say that if the price is genuinely fixed, Russia can't afford it. If the price is not fixed, Hungary can't afford it. EDF claims it's taking the construction risk, but as I said, that's rather a hollow promise. Next slide, please. There's clearly some political risk, and in Britain we have a general election in 2 months. The 2 main parties are solidly pro-nuclear. The third party used to be anti-nuclear but sold out when it was offered a seat in government. Some of the minor parties are against nuclear power. Sorry, I've said minor party for Greens. That's a... What a terrible thing to say. That's just my last invitation here, isn't it? Some of the smaller parties, which are on the up, have a position that is against nuclear power, and it's not inconceivable that they would have an influence on the new government's policy. At least in Hungary, there is an opposition party that appears to be against the deal, so that you have some advantages there. I think the big uncertainty for Paks is whether Russia can actually do the deal. Russia talks very aggressively about exporting nuclear reactors. It's talking about deals for about 40 reactors in the next few years, and it claims it has orders for 20 reactors, including the 2 for Hungary. Given that it can't afford to build plants that it's building in Russia, it seems to me highly unlikely that Russia could get near building those 20, so that begs the question, how far up the priorities is the Hungary order? Because it may well be that Russia doesn't have the finance and it doesn't have the supply chain to do more than a handful of those plants. For Hinkley, Areva is effectively bankrupt. It's only being held up because it's state-owned. It can't take its 10% ownership stake. And is it really a very good idea to buy the biggest civil investment that Britain has ever made from a company that's effectively bankrupt? What are the common factors then? Well, one obvious common factor is secrecy, that as you've heard from Ada, that 15 years wasn't long enough to keep the documentation secret, that it's been extended to 30 years. It's not quite so bad with Britain, but the documentation that justified the economic case to the European Commission is being kept secret from the British public. There are freedom of information requests going in for various reports that supported the economic case, and those are all being blocked. There is uncertainty about the technology. Both technologies, as I've said, are problematic, and 5 years ago Russia announced that there would be a new model to supersede AES 2006, which would be VVER-TOI, and that was said that it would solve all the problems with AES 2006, make it easier to build, rationalise the design, modularise it. So Hungary would be buying an obsolete model. The same applies to Britain. The problems of construction with the EPR mean that Areva is rethinking the design, 10-year programme. It will be too late for the Hinkley reactor, so we will also be buying an obsolete design that appears to have failed. Rather a lot of words in that next point, but the basic point is that the AES 2006 is not really a design. It's just a basic outline concept. The two projects in Russia are supplied by completely different companies, and a Czech observer who looked at the designs when Czech Republic was trying to buy Russian said that basically it was no more than a marketing device, that the safety systems were different, the primary circuits were completely different. So you need to ask the question, what exactly is Paks going to be? Will it be a Novovoronezh model? Will it be a Belarus model? Will it be a Leningrad model? Or will it be something different again? I think the final common factor is clearly that if things go wrong, it's going to be national taxpayers and consumers that are going to foot the bill. So finally, conclusions. I think the big difference between Hinkley and Paks is that Hinkley, in economic terms, is an annoyance. It will make up 7% of our electricity. It will be twice as expensive as the alternative. So realistically, it will put up the price of electricity by 3 or 4% real. And given that our electricity price has doubled in real terms in the last 10 years, 3 or 4% we're not going to honestly notice. It is a big project, even by British standards, but it's not going to bankrupt us. Of course, if we do what the government asks for and actually build 10 reactors instead of the 2 for Hinkley, then we're much more on even terms. Clearly for Hungary, if Paks is built, that will be a huge opportunity cost. There will be no space for renewables. It will be very difficult to justify energy efficiency programs because you will already have huge overcapacity in generation. So building things that would reduce demand even more or replace demand, clearly it would be very embarrassing. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for this very informative comparison of Paks and the Hinkley Point C project. And now we would turn our attention to the geopolitical risks, which were already mentioned by all of us till now, but we will have a deeper look into this aspect by Dr. Todor Galev. Mr. Galev is a senior researcher at the Center for Study of Democracy in Bulgaria. His research primarily focuses on the fields of innovation, policy and technological development. He is also a research fellow at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences in the field of the sociology of innovation and technology studies. A number of his research projects was done in participation with the European Commission. So now the floor is yours, Dr. Galev.
Thank you, Mr. Javor. Thank you for the invitation to be here in this, I think, very important moment for not only for Hungary and Bulgaria, because you know that there is an ongoing project for a new nuclear power plant in Bulgaria also, like in Hungary, but also for the whole European Union and for the whole Central and Eastern Europe region and Paks Hearing region. Actually, the political risks from the financial, technological, and political lock-in with Russian energy companies have become visible, or clearly visible for everyone, in the light of the Crimean crisis and the continuing instability of eastern Ukraine, which clearly demonstrates the EU energy security vulnerabilities, especially for the Central and Eastern Europe and for Black Sea countries. Russia has demonstrated that it has the capacity to yield political and economic influences on the countries in these regions by leveraging its dominant position in their energy markets. Russia has pressured governments to support large infrastructure projects like Paks or NPP Belene in Bulgaria or South Stream gas pipeline, at the expense of the country's long-term strategy to diversify their energy sources and in defiance of EU strategy for building a liberalized common market. You can see which are the fundamentals right now of the long-term energy security in the European Union and especially in Central and Eastern Europe. One of the most important is reducing import dependence, increasing the number of suppliers, utilization of indigenous resources and renewable energy resources especially, and reducing overall energy demand by introducing energy efficiency technologies. Just to assess the in comparative terms what is the energy security situation with the countries, we use the data from the International Energy Security Risk Index developed by the Institute for the 21st Century Energy. You see the components of this index. It's just one of the tools for quantifying energy security. Next slide, please. And you can see that I put here the data from the last year of this risk and assessment and for some selected countries. And you can see that Hungary is in much better position than Bulgaria. Actually, Bulgaria has the worst score among the 80 countries that have been assessed by this Energy Security Risk Index. And in terms of risk, you can see that Hungary is in the second quartile of the countries where the risk is not the lowest, but it's okay. But the case of Bulgaria shows that even very few, even a single large infrastructure projects could increase significantly the score of the country in very short term. So this results for Hungary couldn't be taken as granted for next years, let's say. What are the main energy security challenges for Bulgaria and for the sea region? This is the energy expenditure intensity, which is very high, both in the business sector and among the population. Fossil fuel imports as percentage of GDP is also very high. Oil and gas import dependence, actually Bulgaria is 99% dependent on Russia, both for oil and gas import and energy intensity of the economy. And main energy security risks that we faced are the high energy poverty, above 40% of the population in Bulgaria is in energy poverty, low energy efficiency, and government deficits. Actually, government deficits, or what we call bad government of energy sector, is the political bottleneck in that is avoiding or hampering the tackling of all the risks. I use as a case study two projects in Bulgaria, the project on nuclear power plant Belene and South Stream project, to summarize and show and demonstrate what are the government deficits and political risk in dealing with, especially with Russia as a counterpart in large infrastructure energy projects. In both projects, we can observe lack of independent cost-benefit analysis, or even if there is such an analysis, it's not publicized. There is increasing economic and financial risks beyond the administrative and financial capacity of state-owned energy enterprises, national regulators, and the executives. Lack of transparency, which is quite significant in countries like Bulgaria with fragile democratic rules. Non-compliance with EU legislation and even disregard for the free market and competition rules. And last but not least, abuse of public funds, including in deals that are funded with not only with national public money, but also with European monies. It was mentioned for Paks case already that the project cost forecasts have been either not available publicly or very rough estimations. The project for the nuclear power plant in Bulgaria demonstrated that the price was increased twice, only for 2 years period. And still we do not know what, even we are in let's say in the we started the construction phase of the project, but still we do not know what will be the final price of this project, and what will be which is more important, what will be the additional expenses, like for grid access, project administration, etc., or escalations of inflation-based costs. Our estimation made by my colleagues is that these additional expenses would amount for 6-7 billion euro, while the direct or overnight cost will be about 4 billion euro. In total, our estimation shows that this project will be about 10 to 11 billion euros, and actually a recent analysis made by HSBC audit confirmed these rough estimations. But what are the channels, let's say, for Russian economic and political influence on national energy policies? This is the increased involvement in the energy sector, both investments in existing companies, loans for ongoing and new infrastructure projects. And these investments engage the countries and their state-owned energy enterprises in large inflated deals, which largely outweigh the capacity of the host industry to handle them properly, leaving national monopolies exposed to increased risk of financial dependence and subsequent loss of control over assets. Another channel for Russian economic and political influence is through past collaboration in energy infrastructure. You know that most of the countries from the former Soviet bloc have been for a long time closely related to Soviet economy and technological base. So long-term supply contracts and ongoing technology transfer contracts are also channels for influencing the national policies. And the traditional energy security risks are amplified by some new kind of risk, and these are, we call this state capture mechanisms or state capture risks, which for us are the most important risks because they are unofficial, very difficult to be measured or assessed. And for most of these risks, they are not clear evidences, and even if there are some evidences, they are not legally, they couldn't be legally proved in most of the cases. But what are the state capture mechanisms that we found in the last 2 years as part of the Bulgarian-Russian partnership within the energy policy within the energy sector. First of all, formation of domestic political elites and financial and logistical support to political parties. Just to mention that one of the Bulgarian parties, which has now members in this parliament here, announced and started its pre-election campaign not in Bulgaria but in Moscow. And you can imagine what was the message from there. The other mechanism is direct intervention of Russian companies' officials. And don't be confused, Russian company officials means Russian state officials also, for determining the legislative changes in national energy laws. Actually, recently the economic minister declassified some official documents from the Bulgarian energy holding, and that shows that Gazprom management and the Bulgarian energy minister have been in contact, and Gazprom experts have instructed Bulgarian energy holding on the changes in the domestic energy legislation that passed through the parliament half a year ago, and that the text of this energy, of these changes in the legislation were actually wrote down by Gazprom officials and experts. And like in the case of Hungary, this energy, these changes in the legislation actually tries to circumvent EU legislation. Another mechanism is lobbying behind the scene, which is related with serious suspicions for top-level political corruption. Huge media campaigns in favor of Russian energy interests paid by companies legally not related, but having common history with subsidiaries of Russian companies in the country. A journalist, investigative journalist, published an article in Bulgarian newspaper which shows that the PR company of Lukoil Bulgaria, which is a subsidiary of Lukoil Russia, that the PR company of Lukoil Bulgaria paid a huge media campaign against renewables and against shale gas exploration in Bulgaria. Another channel or mechanism for state capture is increased links between Bulgarian and Russian oligarchs and companies related to them, including for the implementation of large infrastructure projects in the energy sector. Actually, about 60% of all the public procurements in the energy sector in Bulgaria for a 2-year period were non-competitive and distort the free market competition. And there, right now, there is an infringement procedure from the European Commission against Bulgaria about violating the competition rules in a tender for constructing of South Stream part in my country, which was awarded to a group of companies related to one of the Bulgarian oligarchs who has a long-term business with VTB Capital. And VTB Capital is a subsidiary of VTB. This is a Russian bank, National Tergovsky Bank, which in very past, let's say, there are a lot of signs that it is related to the former KGB and that it funds some of the activities of former KGB throughout the world. And what are, next slide please, what are the results of this financial political dependence? I give you just an example with the two projects that I mentioned, South Stream and Bulgarian NPP Beleni. You'll see that the estimated cost of South Stream in Bulgaria is 3 times higher than the cost of similar projects in other countries. Next slide, please. And in terms of, as regarding the nuclear power plant Beleni, investment expenditure for these projects accounts for a quarter of the long-term debt of the national electricity company. What are the political risks for Central Eastern Europe countries? First of all, this is the negative influence of the traditional energy security risks, which is amplified by bad governance and state capture in the sector, which impedes the formation of a common and coherent regional energy strategy. State-owned enterprises have been engaged in large inflated deals, as I already mentioned, which largely outweigh the administrative and financial capacity of the national industries. The energy dependence of most of the countries in this region has been used by Russia as a political tool to influence the government's decision-making. And unfortunately, in many cases, it is not Russian efforts were quite successful in terms of Russian interests and not in terms of national indigenous interests. Another risk is the lack of comprehensive and in-depth monitoring of the energy policy development because of its innate technical complexity and notorious lack of transparency has undermined the ability of the civil society sector to have an effective impact on decision making. Actually, the watchdog function of the civil society sector is hampered and blocked, especially by state capture mechanisms. State capture mechanisms undermine additionally the fragile democracies in some of the countries like Bulgaria. Fortunately, Hungary is in better position. Price of dependence is paid by end customers through higher cost of energy resources, but usually this led to higher financial dependence of the and long-term debt dependence of the energy enterprises in the country. There is a favorable environment for corruption, strengthening the links between organized crime groups, policymakers, and economic oligarchs. Another risk is that energy internal market integration is hampered, liberalization and diversification of sources also. And this decreased the energy security both of the separate countries and of the region as a whole. The prevalence of state capture mechanism often leads the governments to suboptimal decisions that sideline their own planning and investment needs. there is weak public procurement legislation and especially implementation or law enforcement of this legislation. Another risk is the continuation of bilateral instead of multilateral or regional approach to energy security policy. Here are some recommendations that can make better, let's say, the situation, especially in sea in southeastern Europe. But I would like only to mention that on another event here in Brussels 2 weeks ago, one of the former key representatives of the DG Energy, Mr. Vinois, raised the idea for Central East European or Black Sea region energy dialogues that have to elaborate practical steps towards common regional energy security agenda. And we think this is the most important thing, because still all the countries in this region are dealing with Russia independently, one by one. And in this situation, they do not have enough capacity to fight, let's say, against Russian political influence, which is coming through the economic investments usually and through large infrastructure projects. I think that this should be enough. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I would be happy if I could answer them. You can find a lot of our research both on Bulgaria and on sea regions on our website, where all the reports and policy briefs are published also in English language, not only in Bulgarian. And if you have any questions further, we can answer. I can answer them either in the discussion or after that, or even if you want, you can write me an email, drop me a line, and so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this detailed analysis of energy security and the Bulgarian case, which I think is something where we can learn a lot in Hungary. And now we continue on with the issue which was already raised by Dr. Galev. This is the corruption risk of huge investment like the new Paks blocks, keeping in mind all those actions which we faced with recently with classifying confidential or secret most of the information concerning the investment into the new blocks. And now I would like to ask István János Tóth to give his presentation on transparency and corruption risks of the Paks project. István János Tóth is a senior science fellow in the Institute of Economics at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, where he publishes his studies mainly on the topics of informal economy and corporate behavior, as well as on socio-economic matters, which are also his main fields of research at the Corruption Research Center of the Corvinus University of Budapest. And now I would open the floor to Mr. Tóth.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. And let's start about our institution. Our institution is, next slide please, the Corruption Research Center Budapest, and it's a private, non-partisan research institute with interdisciplinary staff, lawyers, sociologists, economists, and programmers. And our main activity is data mining, the big data approach, analyzing of quality of governance, measurement and effects of corruption related to public procurement, and also the problems of quality of legislation. So we have a lot of research, financed by the EU7 framework program, Anti-Corp. We are one member of the Anti-Corp program, and also we have another program of Horizon 2020 and the Digital program, and we have a contract with EU Commission, Open Society Institute and World Bank. And let's switch for the main statements of my presentation. I would like to give you 5 main statements about the corruption risk and the Paks project. The first one is that I think that Paks nuclear power plant project is a par excellence black box for us, for Hungarian citizens, for scientists, for politicians, because we don't know almost nothing. Don't know so about precisely about the project, because the whole project accompanies the lack of transparency. And this very important thing is a crucial thing in terms of the corruption, when we have to take in consideration the corruption, because lack of transparency is more corruption. More transparency is less corruption. I think is obvious. And the third one is the Hungarian authorities ignore the existence of corruption risk at this whole project. They don't like to deal with this issue. I think this is very important and crucial mistake. And the first and the fourth is, I think our estimation that corruption risks are or will be very high at the whole project when we take in consideration the investment project, and because two things I would like to mention. One thing is that in Hungary the corruption is very high. So Hungarian authorities manage this project is a very highly corrupted business environment, and also the contractor is a Rosatom. So Rosatom is not less corrupt company. Rosatom is a very corrupt company. It came from the very corrupt business environment. So it was my statements. And the last one, I think that the high corruption risk results a high level of nuclear risk, because the high level of corruption is one results price increase or quality deterioration of the project. So the quality deterioration of the project results corruption, the nuclear risk, and low level of nuclear safety. Some definition, corruption, you know that, but it's important, the grand corruption, when the government officials or politicians use the power for illegitimate private gain. The corruption risk, this is very simply the probability of corruption, and we can measure the corruption risk. Our institute elaborated a measurement of risk of corruption. The corruption risk index is the value of the corruption risk is from 0 to 1, and 1 is a high corruption risk, and 0 the no corruption risk. So I would like to list some features about general features about the building of the nuclear power plant investment, because during this investment project there are a lot of in general there are a lot of features which help or fuel the corruption. The first is this is a mega project. Very complex, long construction time, high volume. And in terms of the nuclear power plants, is a special heterogeneous goods. The special heterogeneous goods, when we, for instance, when we purchase heterogeneous goods, is more risky about from the corruption issue. The construction and building, this sector is more corrupted than other sectors like education. So the sectoral effects we can also we have to take into consideration. The the last one is the great investment project. We confront the white elephant syndrome. The white elephant syndrome, that the real objective of the project is not to build something, but the real objective of the project is purely the corruption. So, about the market deterioration, my colleague already mentioned this. Market deterioration is very common when we build a nuclear power plant, because a non-competitive markets or markets is low-level competition. The market structure is two sides, oligopoly or oligopsony, and also the third one is a famous bilateral monopoly. Then for instance, Rosatom, the contractor has strong power of the demand and the supply side of the market. And I have some historical evidences, but I have no time to show. So we can run over. Okay. So historical evidences. So it's very common thing that when they build a nuclear power plant, that the regular cost overruns and price increases, and also no meeting the deadlines, and public money losses, and unfinished project like in Bulgaria. And also the high corruption deteriorates the nuclear safety. Here, next slide, please. Here I summarize 75 projects. And the first, the x-axis is a state of the projects. 0 is the beginning of the project, and 100 is a fine of the end of the project. And the y-axis is a price increase. Okay? So in general, from 66 to 77, about twice or 3 times higher the prices than the initial price. So it's a common thing when we would like to build a nuclear power plant. We have to take into consideration this effect. Public money losses, the Belen story, and corruption and safety, and in Fukushima, because in Fukushima we can see a very special type of corruption is revolving door, when the regulator, the expert of the regulator change and go to the company, and so and vice versa. So it also could be very dangerous. But in Paks, concerning Paks, we have to take consideration the special effects. The first one, already a lot of people mentioned, the lack of transparency. Without any public consultation, feasibility studies, impact assessments, and all the secrecy of the whole project. Hungarian government classified all contract data for not 15 years, 30 years. 30 years. And I already mentioned the ignorance of corruption risks by the Hungary authority who built this project. They don't like to involve or don't like to deal with this issue. And also the second, okay, this project is relation-specific investment. The Russian government finances it, and the Rosatom builds it. Next slide, please. Please. Yes, thank you. The Rosatom would like to establish a new technology. It results information asymmetry. And the contractor Rosatom came from the highly corrupted business environment, and Hungary is the high level of corruption. And Hungary is a small country. The Paks plan is a huge plan. And it is a mega project in the Hungarian point of view. Across 10 years, the expected money dispensed to this project is almost the 10% of the total yearly volume of Hungarian investment. You can imagine that. Okay, next slide. And we have some analysis about the Hungarian procurement data. With my colleagues, we did some econometric analysis about 70,000 public procurements. And I would like to mention only two results. One result is the greatest projects are have higher level of corruption risk. And the other one is the energy sector is more corrupt than the other. The energy sector, in terms of when we see the public procurement, energy sector has a high level of corruption risk. Here, one figure that every point is one public procurement. Every point is one public procurement. X-axis is a log of contract value, and Y-axis is a corruption risk. We can see the slight positive correlation between the two factors. Next slide, please. And when we see the distribution of public procurement by corruption risk index, corruption risk, the X-axis is a corruption risk, Y-axis is the density or the frequency of the public procurement in each level of corruption risk. The Paks 2 project is in the more corrupted area, or will be the more corrupted area. It's our estimation. Okay? What is the consequences is that? This is the final slide of mine. We estimate high corruption risk in Paks. We estimate the direct public losses due to the corruption is 1.5 from 1.5 to 2 billion euro. We estimate also cost overruns, price increase, and public money loss by corruption. And as a scientist, we can't exclude the grant corruption. That it means that the grant corruption will be in this project. And the last one is a more pessimistic scenario that a high corruption risk result or affects price increase and quality deterioration, and the quality deterioration affects a low level of nuclear safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tóth. With this, we arrive to the end of the experts' presentations, and now I would like to ask Mr. Massimo Garriba from DG Energy to give an evaluation of the project and also to react on the information provided by our experts. So the floor is yours.
Mr. Javor, thank you very much. First of all, let me thank you for the invitation to participate in this hearing, because it was rather interesting to hear all the different views that have been expressed. Let me start by making some general consideration, if you allow me, on what has happened in the EU since March 2011. Since the Fukushima Daiichi accident. So the first thing I would like to say is that we have worked very thoroughly to, first of all, check the safety of our existing nuclear power plants. And second, we have worked to improve the legislative EU framework that surrounds these plans. The first thing that happened already in July 2011 was the adoption of the Council Directive for the Responsible and Safe Management of Radioactive Waste. You know that following the adoption of these directives, member states will have to define national programs for the handling of waste, and they will have to deposit in these national programs with a deadline of August this year. So we have an important appointment on that. Let me also say that some of the member states have not yet finalized the transposition of this directive, and this is a point of attention that the Commission is actively and formally following up. The second piece of legislation that we have finalized is the so-called basic safety standards, which is traditionally one of the main pieces of legislation for the protection of the health of the public and the workers, and has been regularly revised in the EU. And this new directive has been adopted at the end of 2013. And, for example, it contains improved measures for emergency preparedness and response. The third major breakthrough is the adoption on 8 July of 2014 of the amendment of the 2009 Nuclear Safety Directive. With this directive, there was an agreement to set an ambitious EU-wide safety objectives for all types of nuclear installations. The next step that we have done, we have tried from the EU to export these safety objectives in the framework of the Convention for Nuclear Safety. And recently we had a Vienna Declaration at the diplomatic conference at the IAEA, where the EU was, let me say, a driving force in trying to improve also the international regimes. So let me say that the safety objective that was agreed in the EU is now also recognized at the international level. The Euratom community has also been active in establishing bilateral agreements in the nuclear field with third countries to try and export as much as possible this safety culture that we have tried to establish in the EU. And let me say that the principle of the Commission is always the application of best available technology for nuclear safety. Now let me turn to the energy challenges that we have in the EU. I think that it was debated quite clearly. What are the geopolitical risks, and in particular, what is the situation with the Russian Federation? Member states have tended to react developing national energy strategy, and on the contrary, the response of the EU has been to try and establish a collective and comprehensive response to these energy challenges. And as you know, the Commission has adopted on the 25th of February the Energy Union package, which is together with the energy security strategy one of the milestones of what the Commission is proposing to do in the coming year. If we want a robust energy union, we need to work closely with our member states in order to avoid technology and fuel dependency, and also in the nuclear field. So we need to ensure that whatever we do in terms of energy projects, knowledge management, transparency and competition can be upheld as much as possible. But also we have to ensure that in the EU we maintain technological leadership for what we already have. I know you will not like what I'm going to say now, but nuclear energy plays an important role in the EU energy mix.
But we are used to that.
It enhances security of supply and is part of the decarbonized energy mix. And it fits as such Dimension 1 and Dimension 4 of the Energy Union. Nuclear energy represents around 30% of the EU electricity and baseload capacity. Let me also say that if you combine renewable energy and nuclear energy, the EU is the only global economic actor that generates more than half of its electricity with low carbon sources. So what we have to do, since we have this situation, is to ensure that the highest standards of safety, security, waste management and non-proliferation are ensured in Europe. And so we need to continue working in this way. Now, there are of course also catches. The EU is highly dependent on the import of nuclear fuel for certain type of technology, and therefore diversification of supply is a very important element that we need to follow up. So the Commission, let me recall, strongly encourages every effort aiming at energy independence, and in this sense we encourage the diversification of the sources, so that when new nuclear power plants are built or proposed to be built, we try and minimize technological and commercial constraints and reduce dependence on the supply of nuclear fuel. We work with different fora. We have also engaged with the nuclear safety regulations to try and find possibility of additional European solutions. The Commission in the Energy Union has also made clear that as far as the investment projects are concerned, we want to make a proposal to update the requirements for notifications under Article 41 of the Euratom Treaty in order, on the one hand, to reduce administrative burden on the investors, but on the other hand, to ensure compliance with the security of supply policy that I've just tried to express. Fuel diversification is important and increasingly important also especially for the VVER type reactors, and we must also look at diversification in the fabrication of fuel assembly. Proper functioning of the nuclear common market as defined in the Euratom Treaty does not allow really single supplier to monopolize the market. So this is why we are, as you mentioned, in different ways, we are working on that. And any third countries that engages with projects in the EU has to recognize these principles and try and find adequate solution. We have received, if I may quote, some investment projects for 8 nuclear reactors in the past few years in Hungary, Finland, Lithuania, UK and Slovakia for an amount which is around 37 billion euro. Again, you have also to consider that we have 131 nuclear reactors which are in operation, and for some of them decisions will also have to be made whether extension of operation, long-term operation will have to be made. These decisions are taken at national level. They are not decisions that are taken at European level. This is why I stress that it is important that in the EU we have the framework in terms of safety, security, waste management and non-proliferation that allows the free choice of the member states to pursue this policy or not. But when nuclear power plants are built, all relevant provisions of the EU law have to be complied with. In this sense, nuclear power isn't given any preferential role with regard to any other energy source. You know that in order to avoid undue distortion, the Commission has inter alia the obligation to verify that this is done in line with state aid rules. And I think that we had already quite a discussion on the Hinkley Point case. And you, Mr. Javor, mentioned the complaint that has been raised on the Paks. But what is clear that is not, you know, a unique situation. Every project will have to be scrutinized under this angle. The same goes as far as the questions that have been raised on public procurement. I take I heard with lots of interest the previous two presentations, also that they were hinging on that. Let me say a few words on, in general, but of course it applies to Paks, it applies to Hinkley Point, it applies to any other nuclear project. There are a number of checks and verifications and opinions, is mostly opinions, that the Commission has to give on projects. As I mentioned already, there is the one under the Article 41 for the investment projects. The Commission has to analyze investment projects under all aspects of the Euratom Treaty. Let me also be very clear, Commission gives an opinion and does not impose any technology choice on investors. In this sense, we are technology neutral, but what we look at is that best available technology is used. If you like to put it in slightly different terms, no cheap nuclear and no compromise on nuclear safety. The Euratom Supply Agency has specific legal duties and obligations in accordance with the treaty when looking at nuclear supply contracts, and I will not dwell on that anymore, since, again, the decision that has been taken by the Supply Agency on the Hungarian proposed contract is clear. However, let me also say that after the European Commission has backed the decision of the Supply Agency not to co-sign the contract as it was, the Hungarian authorities have restarted a dialogue in order to how can I say, fulfill the requirements of diversification that have been put forward by the Supply Agency. So we will have to see when and how a solution is found for that. Let me also say that the Commission has asked the Hungarian authority to declassify the Commission decision that has been taken a few days ago. The consent to declassify the decision has been received, and we are working, let me say administratively, on the details of the procedure to make the decision public. As I said, like any other investment, the Paks project will have also to be examined in terms of its plan for the disposal of radioactive waste and its possible effect on any other member states. This is under the provisions of Article 37 of the Euratom Treaty. The Commission will have to give also in this case an opinion to the Hungarian state. Last but not least, since I mentioned security and non-proliferation from the perspective of safeguards, namely the Commission control on the use of nuclear materials within the EU, the nuclear operator will have also to submit what in technical language is called the basic technical characteristics of the Paks facilities according to the Commission Regulation 3002 and 2005. So I think that I have tried to give you basically two points of view. One, in general, of what is the Commission is trying to do in general on safety and security. Second, on what are the provisions applicable to the Paks project that we have either gone through or we have to go through. And as I stress again, it's not a specificity of this project, it is something that we do for all nuclear investment in the EU. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gariba. And now we have something like 45 minutes to raise questions, make remarks, reactions to all of our experts, to the Commission, or to the co-hosts of this event. I see two questions there, so let's start there. Who starts?
So thank you very much for...
I would like to ask you to very shortly to introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, my name is Stella Veliki. I have studied physics and informatics, and I am EU citizen. And thank you for the very quick help to come here. I have three questions, very short. For the Commission, a European energy single market combined with the European energy pack can be useful to fight against the Russian energy dependency, especially in Hungary. But you have this in the other East country also, you know, Romania, Bulgaria, and all the things. The second, an alternative for the nuclear energy, it is the green energy, solar energy. Why you cannot use it? I don't understand this. The second question is the corruption. Yes, you have in Russia big corruption, you have in Hungary big corruption, and all together you have a very big corruption. I understand that, but you have a justice institution in Hungary. Did you take these people at a high-level position to the court because of corruption? I never heard about this. Why is not possible this? That it's a possibility to punish them very clearly. Or your justice is not independent, is corrupted too. That it's an answer also, you know. So then a big point is to have an independence in your justice, institution. That is not my opinion. The security, it's a very big issue. The Russian nuclear reactor, they are not set like the European. It's very known this. Then I think that it's very important that this security and safety of the new reactor that you build in this Park 2 in Hungary must be very clear and very correct. They must be controlled very clearly. I don't know how the Commission can do this, but I think there are international agencies that can do this, you know. So there are.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask you to keep a 3 minutes limit to your questions or remarks if possible. If someone, of course, has some very important remarks, we can make some exception, but generally I would like to keep the 3 minutes limit for the questions and remarks. And let's go to the next one. And we collect 3 or 4 questions, and then the experts can react on the questions together, and then we move to the next block. Please.
My name is Judith Zagnál. I'm a Hungarian journalist with Blocs.info. I have 2 questions to Mr. Gariba and one for basically anyone who knows the answer. You mentioned the importance of diversifying the source of nuclear fuel. Would the EU rules require countries or governments or whoever is the executor of the project to actually demonstrate that there is an alternative supplier who can and is willing to step in to actually produce nuclear fuels for a new reactor if it's needed, or it's enough just to provide the opportunity in the nuclear fuel contract for other suppliers to come in. My second question is, Hungary has not notified the contracts for state aid because it believes it is acting as a market actor or a market participant. What can be the grounds of this specifically? And my third question, does anyone know whether the Hungarian cost, the implied 12.5 billion euros, whether it's the overnight cost or it includes the financing costs?
Thank you very much. Mr. Tibor Sanyi, Hungarian MEP, is the next speaker to give her remarks.
Thank you very much, Bence. Yes, for a quick introduction, I would say that I need to say also that I'm representing the Socialist group here in the European Parliament. I'm having some rapid questions. I do not have any kind of specific addresses, so whoever is able to answer the question, I would really welcome it. First of all, that on one of the charts I have seen that the credit payback starts in particular last year, namely in 2014. I'm just wondering if I saw it correctly, which means for me that even though this whole project is not in operation so far, but its financial part is already puts quite a lot of burden to the Hungarian taxpayers, if so. The second is how perhaps the Commission representative may answer this, but how is it linked with the current state aid bans? Because the overall financial structure, at least for me, suggests that by setting, quite a lot of basic financial stepstones, it's practically in the regulatory side, it resembles me as if serious state aids may prevail in this whole scheme. Now, the third question is that is there any fear that this whole Paks business belongs to the so-called sweetheart tax ruling business by providing special tax advantages to this enterprise. And the fourth question is, and I just want to have a good use of the presence of the Hungarian government's representative. Is the government planning to provide an exclusive economic and taxation environment for this project? Last one, and perhaps to Amonada, that according to certain studies, by investing the same amount, 12.5 billion euros, into energy savings, that could result in much more economic benefits than the overall cost of this nuclear power station. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would give the floor for the experts. Before, I have a very short question to Mr. Gariba, that in your presentation you mentioned that the project should be examined also from the aspect of the disposal of radioactive waste. Could you specify a little bit what do you mean under that? What does it mean to examine, or do you have the impression that there might be some non-compliances of the EU law? How did you understand this statement? And now I would give the floor first to Professor Stephen Thomas, and then also there were questions to Ada Amon, Massimo Gariba. I don't know if our experts from János István Tóth and Dr. Galev would like to react. And also there was a question to Mr. Attila Aszódi from Mr. Szanyi's side, so I also give the opportunity to Mr. Aszódi to answer the question. Okay. So.
Can I be allowed a question for Mr. Gariba? Yes. You mentioned in your presentation, I think it was 4 countries: Finland, Slovak Republic, Hungary, and UK, nuclear projects. And you said something that these were projects worth 42 billion euro?
37.
37. According to the European Commission's press release, Hinkley Point cost 35 billion. Paks cost 12.5 billion. Are those other projects free or negative? Are they? Well, sorry, that was unnecessary. I'm sorry. Let me answer the question about the loans, and that was my fault for not being clear enough. The loans can start to be drawn in 2014, but an interest accrues as and when that money is drawn, but there is no need to start paying back till 2026, and the risk is, of course, that if there is no stream of income because the plant is not operating yet, then that will be a heavy burden on the Hungarian state. The question of whether it's state aid or not, and the simple answer to that is we have no way to know, because we don't know what the deal is. I can't remember the exact tests for state aid, but it's something like, does it confer an advantage? Well, until we see the deal, we don't know that. Is it provided by public money? Well, clearly it is, because the company owning it is directly state-owned. Does it distort markets? Well, again, we can't tell that until we see the deal. So the Hungarian government has to explain what the deal is for the European Commission to know whether there is a priori, a state aid case to be examined.
Well, probably, first of all, the Hungarian government should explain to the Hungarian taxpayers why this project is worthwhile to take the risk for. Answering to Tibor Szanyi's question, yes, we did an analysis of energy efficiency investment years ago, and we came up with a much lower amount of money, which would actually save the exact amount of energy in Hungary. So if this project is 4,000 billion forint, then we can easily save the size of Paks production in other energy carriers for 4,000 billion forint, some amount, lump sum. Okay, so this is for energy efficiency. The other thing we did just recently, we worked out a model which looks at the physical opportunity, whether we can operate our electricity system in 2030 without a new nuclear power plant. And I can say that, yes, we can. It's easy. And it would come with close to 30% of renewable production within the whole electricity consumption, which would, in my mind, and according to the preliminary tests, a much healthier electricity system than today, and much, much more healthier than in 2030, when 60% of electricity would come from nuclear sources.
Thank you. Mr. Gariba.
Thank you. I think I have quite a few questions to go through. The first one was, do we particularly support nuclear energy, or if I can put it like that. Well, the energy policy of the EU is based on the 2020 targets, is based on the revision for 2030, and we have very clear targets for indigenous production through renewables. We have very clear targets on energy efficiency, so to reduce the intensity of the use of energy. But we have also, in the treaty on the functioning of the EU, the right of the member states to decide which energy mix they do use. So there are also those who, like the UK, in the case of Hinkley Point, pursue their decarbonization objective through the use of nuclear energy. So as I tried to explain, our role is, I wouldn't say difficult, it is to create the conditions for member states that can behave and can make choice which are widely different. But let me put it like that, we have common objectives, energy efficiency and decarbonization, which drive the way. Now, you mentioned safety of new reactors as well, and I would like to comment on that because I think it's an important point that you raise. The new safety directive stipulates that projects that are licensed after August 2014 have to demonstrate the compliance with the safety objective. The safety objective means that in case of a severe accident, there shouldn't be significant releases outside the site of radioactivity. So the implementation of this principle belongs to the national authorities. So it will belong to the National Safety Authority of Hungary to demonstrate that this objective has been fulfilled once the project is cleared through all the. So this applies to this project. Then on the diversification and the alternative supplies, let me mention one thing. The market of nuclear fuel is what it is. Uranium is a commodity that you can buy really on the market, but when it comes to fuel fabrications, you don't have a wide variety of actors. So what we try and do is to ensure that in the contractual arrangements there are indeed provisions that allow for this diversification, provided also that the commercial interests of the parties are guaranteed. So there is a balance that has to be drawn between these things. Then I have two questions on state aid, which I think are basically the same. Yes, the project, as we mentioned, like other projects, is being analyzed by DG Comp. I cannot tell you much more about that. First of all, because the DG Comp colleagues wouldn't tell me necessarily all the details of what they are doing, but more importantly, because this is a procedure which is ongoing. So it is not something on which we can dwell too much. The only thing to retain at this stage is that some form of clearance will be needed from the side of the competition authorities. The question on nuclear waste and on the Article 37 from Mr. Javor. This is an absolutely standard procedure for any nuclear installation that will make authorized releases in the environment. So these releases are checked and are verified that are below the limits which are in place through the Euratom Basic Safety Standards. And and the potential for contamination for neighboring member states. So this is the procedure which is in place. And the Commission cannot grant a member state cannot grant an authorization to exploit an installation unless the opinion from the Commission has been obtained. So the opinion is what it is not binding, but before the authorization is given, the opinion has to be obtained. And then there was the question of Professor Thomas on the cost of nuclear projects. I think that we are talking about different numbers, and this is where maybe a slight confusion is generated. What I mentioned are the costs that are notified to the Commission under the Euratom Article 41, so this is the cost of the nuclear investment. When you talk about the cost, for example, of Hinkley Point that you have mentioned, you are considering the overall cost, including the financial burden and the operation of the plant, as far as I remember from the working on the Hinkley Point decision. So, okay. Well, I will ask support from my colleague of Comp that are here as well. But anyway, the figures that I quote, and you can go and see the opinions that we have made public in a number of cases, because they are protected under the Article 44 of the Euratom Treaty. This is the amount of money which is notified to us by the investors. As I said, it doesn't contain certain elements which are included in the costs that you have mentioned. So I'm not claiming at all that these are total costs.
Thank you. Mr. Galev.
Thank you. I want just to short comment to two of the questions that were raised. First of all, security and safety issues. Especially security issue is not a technical issue. It's with this kind of large infrastructure projects, and especially nuclear power plants construction projects, like we know very well in Bulgaria. It's security is, and as Mr. Gariba said, its implementation belongs to national authorities. And security issue is an issue of procedures, and here is the highest risk of state capture that could influence the results of these procedures. What I'm talking about, the decision for starting the construction of nuclear power plant in Belene in Bulgaria was made back in late 80s during the Soviet times. And then the first geological study of the site, of the construction site, said that the risk of earthquake is very high and is not acceptable. Then in mid-90s, an independent analysis from a Russian paid consultant said that the risk is acceptable. And as maybe some of you know, the geological risk of earthquakes do not change in a decade, even in 100 years. So, but right now, the whole Bulgarian policy, energy policy, is based on the second analysis, which is the official one, let's say, which says that the risk is acceptable. About my second comment is about the investment or project justifications, and whether we can invest the same money, for example, in energy efficiency or renewable energy. I would say we should do this, but most of these projects, including Paks and Belene, they say that justification is the demand curve, and especially we will sell the excess of electricity we will produce in these new power plants to our neighboring countries. But even the state authorities in Bulgaria last year said that the excess of electricity that probably Belene will produce in 2020 will not have enough market, not because of the demand and consumption in the neighboring countries, but because of the lack of transmission lines, transmission grids to transport this electricity to the neighboring countries. And the requirements for building new transmission grids and the investments needed for this were not planned by the neighboring countries. And guess what? We have an estimation of 12,000 gigawatt hours by 2020 as an excess from possible production of Belene in Bulgaria, which should be sold, for example, to Hungary. But Hungary will have, if they build Paks, some 10 or even more gigawatts hour they hope to sell, for example, to Bulgaria. So what we will do in this case? So these investments and project justifications in terms of regional market and even European market, electricity market, usually do not take into consideration the additional cost that is needed and additional planning that is needed for not only for the real demand, but also additional cost that is needed for building new transmission lines, new grids, and so on and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, and now I would give the opportunity to Mr. Asodi to answer the question raised by Mr. Sanyi. I would like to ask you to talk to the micro. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you don't mind, I would like to say a few other words to other topics as well. Let me start with a general comment. I am really disappointed to see that you organize a hearing here with the title New Hungarian Nuclear Investment Paks without asking the authorized organization of the Hungarian government to present the project. If you don't understand what is going on, please consider this. You should ask the questions and hear the answers and maybe look at the details of the project without discussing those details. This is the general comment. Let me touch some points which have been discussed here during this 2.5 hours. Nowadays in Hungary, we import 1/3 of the electricity. If we look at the sources of this import, we see that the electricity being imported to Hungary comes mainly from Ukraine, 100% coal-produced electricity, from Poland, 83% of this electricity produced in coal-fired power plants, and from Czech Republic, where 51% of the electricity is produced in coal-fired power plants. So we strongly believe that it is not sustainable. We strongly believe that we need energy sources which are not relying on coal. At this moment, we have approximately 40% of nuclear energy in the electricity production, and the goal of the Hungarian energy policy is to keep this 40% for long term. I think this objective complies with the European objectives. We have to understand that Hungary is flatland. We do not have high mountains. If we would have the Alps in Hungary like Austria, we would have much more green hydropower. But unfortunately, we do not have the Alps in Hungary. So the energy policy is determined by the possibilities of the different countries. This is the reason why the Hungarian energy policy contains the nuclear option. Whether the decision was transparent or not, you may know, because you have been in the parliament, in the Hungarian parliament, and you may know that in 2008, in 2009, in 2011, the Hungarian parliament discussed the energy policy. And there were a lot of different decisions made. All in these decisions, the nuclear option was incorporated. So it is not a news that Hungary is going to stay in the field of nuclear energy. Once again, the objective, the long-term objective is to keep the nuclear share at 40% in the electricity production. It means that there will be 60% for other energy sources, like renewables or other energy sources. Other Amon mentioned that it could be possible to have 30% renewables in 2030. If we would shut down the nuclear energy in Hungary, what will happen with the remaining 70%? Would you base the remaining 70% on coal or gas, Russian gas, or what kind of gas do you mean? So please consider there are energy security issues, there are economical issues, there are climate change issues, and the valid Hungarian energy policy deals with those issues. Therefore, we have the green energy and nuclear energy in this energy policy. Coming to the details of the contract, what we have for the Paks 2 project, please understand that we have a loan from the Russian party, 10 billion euros, which covers 80% of the project. It means that we have to cover the remaining 20%. If you calculate this, you will get 12.5 billion euros as the budget of the project. I have to report that the EPC contract, which is the engineering, procurement and commissioning contract, is based on a lump sum fixed price which is below this 12.5 billion euros. It is not an overnight cost. It is the real price incorporated into the EPC contract. It means that all inflation and other risks are covered by the contract because it is the total cost of the project. Mr. Thomas, I do not understand why do you question whether the Hungarian project is turnkey. Believe or not, it is a turnkey project with a total EPC cost below the 12.5 billion. If you benchmark this number and calculate the specific investment cost, you will find that the Paks 2 project specific investment cost is in the range of the well-known international numbers. So it will be cheaper than the UK project, but in the range of other projects. It is easy. It is a very easy calculation. You have to divide the 12.5 billion euros with 2 times 1,200 megawatt electric, and you can calculate the specific cost of investment. coming back to the questions of Mr. Sanyi, in 2014, there were no any financial actions between Hungary and Russia. So we did not start to withdraw the loan in the last year, and there is no need to pay back any money to Russia. If you read the financial intergovernmental agreement available on the internet, because it is a law in Hungary, totally transparently public, you will find that Hungary has to start the payback of the loan in 2026. So this is the first year when we have to pay back money to Russia. And the objective is to have both units operational until this deadline. I do not know any intentions of the government to arrange some exclusive economic environment for the Paks 2 project. Your last question was related to energy saving. We have this 12.5 billion euro for the project, not for corruption, not for party financing. It is for the project, for the Paks 2 project. And this money is not available for energy saving. But please understand, at this moment, we import, once again, 1/3 of the electricity. We cannot substitute this electricity by energy savings. There are room for energy savings in Hungary, for example, by the heating sector, but today heating is based mainly on gas. So if you improve energy savings, you will have less gas consumption, but not less electricity consumption. At this moment, Hungary consumes approximately 60% less electricity per capita as Austria, or 50% less than Germany. So I do not see real room for energy saving in electricity sector in Hungary. We think that the Hungarian economy will grow and it will cause electricity consumption increase in the future. The last point is maybe corruption, the topic of corruption. So I think corruption is crime. I do not support any corruption. If you see somewhere corruption, you have to start legal process. So if you see that, please start the legal process. Mr. Todt, I am afraid you use the word risk wrongly. You are speaking about corruption risk and connect the corruption risk with decrease of nuclear safety. Risk is possibility for something, but safety can be measured very clearly. There are rules for nuclear safety. We are going to construct a generation 3+ reactor with very high standards, keeping in mind all the safety rules. And we will install all necessary safety equipments. So please do not mix corruption risk with nuclear safety, because they are far away from each other. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to the next round of questions, and then again reactions of the experts, including what we heard from Mr. Asodi. Before I cannot stop myself to answer your initial remarks on the invitation. First of all, wouldn't have liked to put you in an inconvenient situation that you have to speak about classified data which are classified by the force of law, and to put you in this situation to share those information which are not public and commit a crime like that. And on the other hand, 10 days ago, there was in a private channel, TV channel, they organized a debate on the Paks case, and they tried to organize a debate between us. And according to the TV channel, they told me that the government refused the public debate because they told that there is a governmental policy saying that there is no direct debate on or above state secretary level. I understood it well. It's the government's decision. We respected this policy, but thank you for breaking this policy and kindly visit us today. I think it's really useful to start a debate which is very needed in Hungary and not done in the last couple of years, because there are no public information on, for example, the economic and financial basis of this investment. You mentioned that there were decisions in the parliament. The Ombudsman's office released an opinion on that parliamentary decision, stating that the decision was made without satisfactory level of information for the parliament. So it was a political decision without real information. So we cannot use that covering this issue, because the Ombudsman stated that there was no satisfactory level of information before the parliamentary decision. Concerning the corruption case, you mentioned that we should turn to the police or public prosecutor's office. Recently, a Hungarian NGO published a study which proves that in the last 5 years, the Hungarian public prosecutor's office didn't initiate any investigations in corruption cases. That's what's happening in Hungary. Myself, I send at least 5 cases to the prosecutor's office with proofs and documents without any effect. In Hungary, the public prosecutor's office, and this is proved clearly, and also now the public prosecutor's office is investigating itself because of this, doesn't initiate investigations in corruption cases. So we turn to the public prosecutor's office, but there are no any chance to really have an effect. And the last remark, you mentioned that the 12.5 billion euros is the total cost of the project. It's clearly not the total cost of the project. At least the capital cost, the interest of the project is 11 billion euros. So you can build a nuclear power plant or 2 new blocks from 1.5 billion euros, or you don't count the capital cost of the project. If you count also the capital cost into the calculation, it's over 20 billion euros, and this is what is important from the point of view of the price of electricity on the long run. And now also Rebecca would like to react, and then we have not too much time, but still I would open the floor for 2 questions and coming back to the experts to react on that.
Yeah, I feel a bit responsible as the president of the Green Group, because you doubted the working method of this hearing. And maybe you don't know, but I, together with colleagues from the Hungarian parliament in that days, and accompanied by experts on energy and nuclear safety, I visited Paks. It's not too long ago. Huh? It was 1.5 years or so ago. We tried to find out in a day-long meeting in Paks, first of all, what's going on with the cleanup and the shipment of the waste of the accident, the famous Paks accident. So informations we received have been close to zero. And I was surprised how in the end the shipment took place not long ago. So the other part of the visit was dedicated to find out details on the new build plans in Paks, and I have to admit that my experiences in this visit, compared, for example, to experiences I had visiting Belene, Kozloduy, or other places. So the result in Paks was very poor. I learned more about the gardening around the power plant than about the details of the plans for the new build. And if you invite me now to come again to Hungary to check the details, I'm clearly open, as we have always been open, because first thing I learned in these long debates, decade-long debates on nuclear, transparency matters. And if you guarantee transparent information on Paks, I'm ready to go every day to Hungary and again to Paks.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I had one question from Zsolt. Perhaps we can have an opportunity for one additional question as the time has gone. Let's give the opportunity for those who haven't asked yet. So there is a second question. Then I close the question round here, and then we come back to the panel to answer to the questions.
Thank you very much. I'm Zsolt Boda from Hungarian NGO Védj, Let's Protect the Future. I would have a question to Mr. Gariba, but first I cannot retain myself to make a short comment on the illiberal democracy in practice in Hungary. So Todor mentioned that watchdog organizations are being blocked in Bulgaria. The same is happening in Hungary. So the Hungarian government is actively fighting watchdog organizations and civil society. So 1 year ago, top-level politicians launched a campaign against NGOs. And this is not just words, because they are using state authorities like the police, the state control authority and tax authority to harass those NGOs. So as of today, our NGO and also Energia Club, I may say, is being investigated by state authorities. So this is the illiberal democracy in practice built by Mr. Orbán. I think it runs contrary to the EU values and principles. And my question to Mr. Gariba concerns the secrecy and transparency of project. In your experience, what are the information about nuclear power plants that are usually made public? I mean, we have ongoing projects, we have previous projects. So what are the information that are usually made public? This would be my first question. I would think, for instance, that economic analysis, cost-benefit analysis should be made public. I understand, of course, that some technical and other information could be kept in secrecy, of course, but I think that a lot of other information should be made public. So what are those information that are generally made public? And what is your position that what kind of information should be made public, including concerning Paks or even Hinkley Point? We just learned that even there are problems of secrecy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and the gentleman there. I would like to ask you to speak to the micro as we have a live web streaming, and all those who are following us.
Christian Oliver from the Financial Times, and it's another question from for Mr. Gariba, please. It's just really, could you flesh out a bit more on the necessity of diversification? Because it's still a little unclear whether it's potential or it has to be real. Whether in the contracts, if it comes to a point where after a certain number of years you just tender and, say, a Rosatom affiliate could continue to win every few years, or at some point there would be, and as you've put it, provided the commercial interests of the parties are guaranteed, there has to be some other way of actually financially guaranteeing that some other supplier would be making Hungary non-100% dependent on fuel, nuclear fuel from Russia. Thank you.
Thank you, and then we come back to the experts. Mr. Toot wanted to react, and also there were questions to Mr. Gariba. This is for sure. If any of the experts or the panelists would like to react, of course, they still have the opportunity.
Thank you very much. So about the control and about the role of taxpayer, and your mention about the control is very crucial, it's very important. I think that is a task of Hungarian taxpayer and also the Hungarian citizens to decide the future plan of this kind of project, and also the corruption risk to punish the maybe the politicians or whatever who committed this transaction. And about the corruption risk and the safety problem, I'm censor now. I'm very happy to discuss this issue in Brussels in English because it is the first time we can discuss this type of issue, and we have not to change to discuss in Hungarian. So I think the corruption is a crime. It's true, and I've tried to understand your point of view because, but when you take consideration, for instance, a house, you can also calculate the possibility of robbery or something like that. So we can calculate also, it is also could be a hard data, we can calculate the corruption risk. And if you see, for instance, multinational firms, they establish institutions. They establish institutions against the corruption, like compliance office. This is very common in the business area, in the very sophisticated business area. My question and my opinion: why the Hungarian government and you, why you doesn't deal with this question? So we can discuss the next time maybe, but so I think it's important, and we can link. Unfortunately, we can link the corruption risk and the possibility of accidents and the safety problems. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and Mr. Gariba.
Well, thank you. I think I have two rather different questions, one which is on transparency and the other one goes back on the diversification. Let me first of all say on transparency. I think the Commission is pretty clear on transparency. We would like to see as much as possible in the public domain, full stop. There are rules in law that we have to apply. Let me be also very clear on that. I'm an official, you know. I'm not a politician. I'm paid to apply rules. Therefore, we need again to balance that. What I can tell you is that as far as the procedures that I have mentioned, for example, the investment procedure under Article 41 Euratom, the Commission has endeavored to publish all the opinions that it has given in the past 10 years, and we have tried to do as much as possible on that. We need the consent of the investor and the member states, and we have moved progressively in a situation of increased transparency. And you can go on the web and find the opinion of the Commission. We have also convinced investors to not only allow the Commission to publish its own opinion, but also to publish their own submission to the Commission. So this is what I can tell you in general. Of course, it is clear, as I said, and I will maintain that, that each project which has economic interest and a business case may have certain parts which they will not, for whatever reason, also want to make public. And this is why I think that we have to be careful in giving all the details outside. So I hope this satisfies you. Second, the question on diversification, is it potential or real? Well, in order to diversify, you need to have somebody who constructs your nuclear fuel elements. So what you can do, well, either somebody wants to do them and is already on the market. This is the case for some reactor types from the Russian Federation. So this diversification can happen. And so if this is the case, we can indeed, when the contracts are co-signed, ensure that these can go through. Now, for new types of reactor, if this diversification does not exist, if nobody is building these elements, we can do different things. We can allow that somebody else can start testing their fuel elements in a reactor, and by doing that, creating, as I said before, the conditions so that in future, if there is a market interest, this can actually take place. So I hope this clarifies what I had said before. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also Adamon would like to make some comments.
Yes. First of all, the Hungarian electricity system is not importing electricity because we don't have capacity to produce enough in Hungary. 2 years ago, Hungary imported 40% of its electricity, not because we want cheap electricity, because the Hungarian government has a new policy of bill cutting, a campaign with which the Fidesz government remained in power, I guess. So we have installed one of the latest design natural gas-fired power plant 2 or 3 years ago, which didn't really work at all, because it would produce electricity in a much higher price than the Hungarian electricity price would bear. So that's the thing. And if we really up to maintain the nuclear part in the electricity sector in Hungary, then we would like to learn how the other 60% would be developed. And that's what we haven't heard from the Hungarian government so far, that, yes, really, if this is the goal, then how are we going to develop renewable energy system? How are we going to integrate wind and solar into that, with regard that in certain years we are going to have close to 70% of the production coming from one side, nuclear production, base load. So how are we going to interact and how are we going to cooperate with all these different and very sensitive energy sources? That's a question what never been answered by the Hungarian government. And one other thing, if we are talking about an energy system, we are not talking about only the electricity system. We are talking about a lump sum consumption, the energy carrier which is coming into the country and what can be used in different ways. Natural gas can be used in individual houses, boiler, heating the house itself. If we save there, that natural gas can go to other parts of the country and can be used to fire power plants and generate electricity. And this is very easy for an engineer, I guess, is a simple thing to understand. And that's what we are talking about, that we are about to use the same amount, or usually we are talking about less amount of energy in the future, because we are talking about reduction of CO2, we are talking about energy saving, which will happen big time also in Hungary, and we are talking about renewables. So we are talking about a decreasing amount of energy, what should be supplied to people, and how we are going to allocate that energy, and that what discussion never happened in Hungary, and that's what we are lacking. And I guess if we have a chance to do that calculation together, then we come up to a situation in which renewable will have a much higher part in the energy system, and nuclear will probably not have a chance because it's much more expensive than the renewables even now.
Thank you very much. And as we are far beyond the original time limit, I would like to say thank you for all of our experts to accept our invitation and to join us today. Also to Mr. Asudi to join us today, and jumping into a debate which is highly missing in Hungary, and I hope so that we will have the opportunity in the future to really debating and discussing all those issues which were already raised in our today discussion. Thank you for everybody to be with us today following the discussion, also to Energia Club for the initiative, and to Rebecca to being the co-host of this event. And have a good day.